Hi everybody, welcome back. If we haven't met before, I'm delighted to meet you now. My name is Cora, and this is A Pinch of Patience. I'm going to show you guys today something that I have been doing for about the past 2 years and just really love. I'm going to share with you how I nixtamalize corn at home to make my own fresh masa dough for tortillas, tamales, and beyond. I got into this 2 years ago after I had grown my first batch of corn at home. I grew the Painted Mountain flour corn and I wanted to know how to use it to the best of its abilities to really unlock its full potential. Because I think growing grain corn, especially in my area, but in most applications, in a preparedness, just trying to be a little bit more sufficient and grow some of your own calories, I think corn is an amazing option. It's easy to harvest. You get the most calories per square foot, and it's a very versatile grain once you learn how to kind of unlock its potential. So that's what I'm gonna share with you guys a little bit today, is how we unlock its potential through nixtamalization. So what is nixtamalization, other than a tongue twister? Nixtamalization refers to the process of cooking your dried corn in an alkaline solution. So today it's most common to use pickling lime, which is calcium hydroxide, and using that as your alkaline solution, but this can also be done with wood ash. If you maybe want to get really adventurous and bushcrafty, you can do this with wood ash. And maybe if I can find it, I'll link a tutorial to that in the description. Today, we're going to be using the pickling lime. It is kind of the more modern, easy convenience solution to nixtamalizing your corn. And the reason that we would go through this little extra effort rather than just grinding the dry corn is because it really unlocks not only the nutritional potential, but also the culinary potential of your corn. It takes it from a really gritty, has no gluten, doesn't stick together, just very crumbly, gritty texture into a soft, malleable dough that you can do so much with. You can make the tortillas, the tamales, you can use it to make calzone. That's so good. And you guys will really be able to see how workable and pliable and versatile this becomes when it is a masa dough. So on a nutritional standpoint, a really, really big one is that nixtamalizing opens up the bioavailability of the vitamin B3 or the niacin, which prevents pellagra. If corn is going to be a really big staple part of your diet, as it is in many traditional cultures, it needs to be nixtamalized. It increases the calcium and it also lets the iron be more bioavailable, so you can really absorb the nutrition from your corn. The process is super simple. You're gonna need a non-reactive pot. I'm gonna use stainless steel. It's my favorite other than cast iron, so when I need something non-reactive or I'm just cooking liquids, I always opt for the stainless steel. 2 cups of whatever dry corn you're using, if you grew your own or if you're purchasing from a local farm or online. 2 cups of dried corn right in there. 1 tablespoon of your pickling lime. And then you're just gonna want to fill it with enough water that the top of the corn is covered by 1 inch or 2. We're just gonna turn this on to medium-high heat, bring it to a boil. Once it hits a boil, we'll put the lid on, turn it down to low, and let it simmer for 30 minutes or until it's done. And I'll show you some tricks for how to test for doneness. Once it's cooked, we'll remove it from the heat and let it sit for 8 to 24 hours before proceeding to grinding this into a beautiful masa dough. One thing you can do to test for doneness is to rub a kernel between your fingers and the peri-cap should fall off pretty easily. You can also bite it in half and the middle should be slightly uncooked. Okay, we're back. It's been about 12 hours and now we're ready to get this rinsed. Rinse usually about 3 times, rinse until the water runs clear. You don't need to get all of the peri-caps out. Most of them will just come out on their own. You wanna make sure you have a good strainer in your sink because the peri-caps and things coming out in this rinse can really gum up your drain. That's all rinsed and ready to go. So now we're going to get our grain mill assembled. I wanted to just show you guys how I put it together. It's really simple and easy to use. This is the Wonder Mill Junior Deluxe hand grain mill, and I use it almost every day. I've had it for about 2 years now, and I really enjoy it. I can use it for both dry grains and wet things like masa and nut butters. The main base has a really easy twist clamp system attached. That's really handy because you can just use it on your table or your counter. You don't have to have a whole separate block attachment dedicated to your mill. It comes with 2 different augers now, which is the really neat part. That's actually what sold me on it. It has a regular auger, and then the kind of triangular one is called the masa auger. So that's the one we're going to use today. The side with the little hole goes in. That's where our handle will attach. There we go, easy peasy. And then it also comes with 2 different sets of grinding stones. So these are the stainless steel plates that we'll use today since we're doing something wet, we're doing the masa. But it also has the stone burrs, so you can do your own stone ground flours at home. And I use these all the time. The washer goes on. Locking pin. And the handle. So the flour shield is really great if you're doing flour, but I find that it's not as necessary for masa, and kind of a little bit in the way even for nut butters and things like that, personally. So I'm gonna skip it this go round, and we're gonna go straight to putting on the grinding stones. So we're gonna do the stainless steel ones today because we're doing a wet, oily ingredient. You don't wanna use your stone burrs for a wet or oily ingredient. Washers on the back, and then you put the little nuts on and you just tighten them to finger tight. You never want to use a wrench or anything on these. You always just want to screw these on finger tight. And I mean, get them on tight by all means, but if you use a wrench, you're gonna run into problems. So the other plate, put them in facing each other and just rotate until it clicks on there. One more washer right there. And then the big one first. These are how you adjust the coarseness of your grind. And this one kind of does bigger adjustments, and this little one on top will do finer adjustments and also just kind of lock it in place where you want it. So I put these on usually all the way tight while I'm loading the hopper with whatever grains I'm doing, and then I'll loosen them up and adjust once I get going. So we're ready to add our corn. So we're just gonna load the hopper up with our nixtamalized corn. I'm gonna just loosen this up a little bit, and you might need to use your fingers a little bit to just kind of get stuff started feeding through, and be careful. They actually don't recommend that you stick your fingers in here. They want you to use a little tool, but I like to live dangerously, and I just stick my fingers in there. Okay, it's a little bit awkward going this way. I usually grind the other way, but so that I can face you guys, I'm going this way today. So doing the masa takes a lot less a physical effort to turn the mill because it's already cooked, it's softened, but it does take a little bit of patience just to kind of sit here and make sure that it is feeding through. That's the only part that does take a little bit of effort, but there we go. We're starting to get it picked up in the auger now. They do make attachments if you want to not have to turn this by hand. They make like a drill bit attachment and some other things. I personally find the hand turning really rhythmic and relaxing. And it also just, I feel Like, it's a great preparedness item. You're not relying on electricity for one more thing. So I do love the hand mill, but if you wanted that like prep item, but you didn't want to turn it by hand constantly, there is a drill bit attachment you could look into, and I'll link the mill and some of the attachments in the description. With a little bit of patience and elbow grease, we have a bowl full of fluffy, gorgeous masa dough. And now all it needs is a little bit of salt. And optionally, if you're doing tortillas and you like a softer, more flexible tortilla, you could add a teaspoon or two of a melted fat of your choice. Usually tallow or lard is really good in this. So with our little bit of salt, we're just gonna knead it like you would any bread dough. Just squish it, bring it together. Just bring it together into a uniform ball and get that salt mixed in there. You don't really need to knead it very much, but just get the salt distributed. As you guys can see, if you've worked with like cornmeal before, you know this is a totally different product. Like this is like Play-Doh. It's so soft and flexible and malleable. You can really work with this and shape it. It just transforms corn into a completely different product. So for tortillas, we're just going to make little golf ball sized portions here to work with. About like that. And now I'm gonna show you how we flatten them into tortillas without a tortilla press. We're gonna take a Ziploc bag and some scissors, perform a little bit of minor surgery. We're gonna just cut the top off. And we're gonna slice both sides open. So now we have something like that we can use to press our tortilla. You take your tortilla or your masa dough and you stick it just right in the middle there. And then use a heavy casserole dish, a cutting board, whatever you have, and push down on it. Sometimes I'll take the cutting board and put it on the floor and let my kids jump on it, and that makes it a really fun family activity. So, relatively thin little tortilla here. And you just peel the top off, flip it onto your hand, and peel the bottom off. And there we have it. So I've got my favorite cast iron griddle heated up medium-high, ready to go dry. It doesn't need oil in it. And we're just going to lay that on there. This is a secret little trick. I like to do about 10 seconds on one side and then flip it and then do about a minute or two on each side. And that just helps seal it in so that you get a softer, fluffier, I think it just gives a better texture. And there's a little bit of debate, people that think it makes a difference and people that don't. So up to you whether you do that little extra step or not. About a minute or two on each side, you wanna let it cook until you see the little crispy brown spots. That's when you know it's perfect. As these cook, you can put them on a plate and keep them covered with a tea towel to just keep them nice and warm and flexible until you're ready to serve them. You can store them at room temperature in an airtight container for a couple of days. You could also freeze them if you wanted to make them in large batches and freeze them with parchment paper in between them. But I like to just keep any leftover dough in the fridge for a few days and then just make them fresh as I need them or have it for other recipes. It just gives me a little bit more flexibility. So I usually just cook as much as we're going to eat at that moment and keep the masa dough in the refrigerator for maybe 3 or 4 days max is usually how long I keep it. And then I can just use it fresh as needed. Thank you guys for joining me in the kitchen today. I seriously recommend this Wonder Mill so much. It's a huge game changer in the kitchen. Just having those amazing, delicious, fresh ground flours for bread, the fresh masa. It is so amazingly delicious, but also the nutritional value is just so much higher. I seriously recommend it to everybody now. The fresh ground flours and the fresh masa are just absolute game changers. They're so amazing. Seriously, the best tortillas ever. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this kind of video, if you've ever tried this before, if you even knew what nixtamalization was. Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts and connect with you in the comments.